When Russian forces crossed into Ukraine in early 2022, many expected a familiar kind of conflict defined by tanks, artillery, rockets, and traditional military power. Analysts predicted a campaign resembling earlier battles of the last decades, an armored push supported by aircraft, long-range strikes, and overwhelming mass. Yet within months, Ukraine began reshaping the battlefield with a tool the world underestimated: drones. Not the expensive, highly specialized UAVs used by major militaries, but an agile, scalable, rapidly evolving ecosystem of low-cost aerial systems that transformed the very logic of the war. Ukraine's drone evolution was not simply a technological addition, it was a shift in warfare itself, an emergence of a model built on improvisation, speed, and national-level creativity. Russia entered the conflict with numerical advantages across air, land, and long-range fires, but Ukraine countered with something Russia could neither anticipate nor match: an ability to innovate under pressure using commercial quadcopters, improvised airframes, open-source software, and salvaged components to build a drone force at unprecedented speed. This revolution did not begin in factories or research laboratories. It began in garages, basements, volunteer workshops, and improvised production centers spread across the country. Civilian engineers, hobbyists, coders, and soldiers created a decentralized ecosystem capable of testing new ideas, modifying hardware, and delivering updated designs faster than traditional defense structures could respond. What emerged was one of the most significant strategic surprises of the war. In the early months, Ukraine relied heavily on off-the-shelf drones for reconnaissance and artillery correction. They were simple, cheap, and effective, but vulnerable to Russia's electronic warfare and increasing countermeasures. The moment Russia adapted, Ukraine evolved again. Improvisation became industrialized. Drones once used for filming weddings were modified for heavier payloads. New airframes appeared. Mission profiles expanded. Systems that cost a fraction of traditional military hardware now provided capabilities once reserved for expensive reconnaissance aircraft, and, crucially, could be replaced in days rather than months. Russia was not prepared. Its doctrine focused on mass and firepower, not on fighting against an adversary with thousands of constantly evolving systems. Supply routes, trenches, armored vehicles, and command centers suddenly found themselves exposed. Traditional concealment and mobility techniques were no longer enough. The battlefield had changed. The transformation stemmed from three defining characteristics of Ukraine's drone evolution: speed, scalability, and decentralization. Where conventional weapons programs require years, Ukraine's innovators could produce new variants in days. When Russia introduced new jamming patterns, Ukrainian engineers shifted frequencies, redesigned antennas, or adapted flight paths. When Russian logistics changed, drones changed roles. Every shift in Russian tactics was met with a faster Ukrainian response. This speed became a weapon in itself, one Russia struggled to counter. Scalability was the second advantage. Ukraine could build drones by the thousands. Basic models could be assembled in hours. Advanced ones in days. Costs were low enough that units could experiment aggressively. If a design failed, another replaced it immediately. Traditional systems, tanks, armored vehicles, large drones, cannot be regenerated that quickly. Ukraine found itself in a position where iteration became a strategic asset. The third characteristic, decentralization, was the most disruptive. Ukraine's drone ecosystem was not centered around one facility or one company. It was distributed across dozens of groups: volunteers, small businesses, military units, and private manufacturers, each working independently but feeding into the same national effort. If one site was destroyed, others continued. If one design became outdated, new ones replaced it. Russia, built around centralized production lines, could not match this flexibility. These factors combined to produce something new on the battlefield: persistent presence. Traditional reconnaissance assets, manned aircraft or satellites, provide snapshots. Drones linger. They watch for hours. They track movements. They adjust in real time. This constant surveillance eroded the element of surprise Russian armored units had to assume that drones were overhead. Supply convoys had to operate under the same risk. Command posts had to relocate frequently. The battlefield became transparent. By late 2023, Ukraine's drone force had expanded into a layered system. Small quadcopters supported infantry. Medium-sized UAVs guided artillery. Larger drones struck infrastructure deep behind enemy lines. Maritime drones challenged Russian naval dominance. And across every category, Ukraine's innovation cycle moved faster than Russia's ability to respond. The Black Sea provided one of the clearest demonstrations. Russian warships, once secure under layered defenses, suddenly faced high-speed maritime drones assembled from affordable materials. These unmanned vessels forced Russia to reposition ships, alter routes, and reinforce defenses. A navy accustomed to operating with relative impunity now faced a threat that was cheap, scalable, and extremely difficult to intercept. But the most important part of this evolution is its structure. Ukraine's drone ecosystem is distributed by design. Each group iterates constantly. Each improves based on immediate battlefield feedback. No single hub controls innovation, which makes Ukraine's drone force resilient, adaptive, and nearly impossible to suppress. Russia's more hierarchical structure cannot keep pace. The conflict has therefore become a continuous technology race, one driven not by superpower-level industrial capacity, but by speed, creativity, and decentralized adaptation. This dynamic has not been seen in modern European warfare since World War II. Yet Ukraine's drone evolution is more than technology. It is doctrine. Ukraine did not simply plug drones into existing tactics. It rewrote tactics around drones. Reconnaissance missions requiring entire units now require a single operator. Artillery fire can be corrected instantly. Infantry assaults gain real-time situational awareness. Even small skirmishes are shaped by aerial oversight. Ukraine's integration of drones into every branch of its military has created a layered model of warfare in which drones are not supporting tools. They are foundational elements. This transformation is one of the reasons Russia has struggled to adapt. Its traditional strengths, artillery mass, armored thrusts, centralized control, are vulnerable to drone-driven transparency. Russia's initial doctrine assumed a battlefield where concealment and shock mattered. Drones erased that battlefield. Understanding how this evolution reached its current level requires examining the next stage. Purpose-built systems engineered specifically to withstand Russian electronic warfare, operate at long distances, and strike where traditional tools cannot. In the early months, commercial quadcopters were the backbone. As Russian jamming intensified, Ukraine developed a new generation of drones designed to survive in contested skies. Some could navigate without GPS. Others used inertial guidance, optical flow, or pre-programmed routes. These adaptations forced Russian electronic warfare units into a reactive cycle. Each Ukrainian change required new countermeasures. Range became the next frontier. Ukraine began building drones capable of traveling hundreds of miles. While lacking the explosive power of ballistic missiles, they provided a strategic effect. Russia's deep rear was no longer safe. Air bases, logistics hubs, and fuel depots became vulnerable to low-cost platforms Russia struggled to consistently intercept. This development reshaped strategic planning for both sides. Alongside long-range drones, FPV systems emerged as one of the most transformative categories. Originally designed for racing, it is an ecosystem built on improvisation, feedback loops, and the ability to adapt without waiting for bureaucratic approval. This decentralized innovation has profound implications. When conditions change in one area of the front, lessons are immediately shared. A successful drone design developed by a single workshop can spread across the country within weeks. A new tactic discovered by a frontline operator can be adopted nationally almost overnight. A vulnerability identified in Russian defenses can be countered with a modified system just days later. This agility ensures Ukraine's drone evolution remains in motion. Not a static program, but a living system of constant improvement. Russia's more hierarchical structure, by contrast, limits this type of rapid adaptation. Although Russia can produce drones in significant numbers, its design evolution moves more slowly. Field feedback must travel up the chain of command before reaching designers, and new models must pass through slower industrial processes. By the time a countermeasure reaches the battlefield, Ukraine has frequently shifted again. This cycle created a strategic mismatch. Russia responded to yesterday's drones, while Ukraine prepared tomorrow's. The economic dimension of Ukraine's drone strategy also plays a vital role. Traditional military equipment, tanks, aircraft, missile systems, requires enormous investment. Ukraine's drones, by comparison, cost a fraction of these systems while achieving outsized impact. This cost asymmetry allows Ukraine to maintain pressure even when resources are strained. A single FPV drone can disable a vehicle worth millions. A long-range drone costing a small fraction of a cruise missile can hit strategic targets deep in enemy territory. The economic math favors Ukraine's model of distributed, low-cost, high-impact warfare. But cost alone is not the full story. The diversity of Ukraine's drone arsenal is equally important. From small quadcopters to sophisticated long-range platforms, from FPV precision drones to high-speed maritime systems, Ukraine has built a multi-layered drone architecture that operates across land, air, and sea. Each category fills a specific role. Together, they create a comprehensive capability unmatched by any other modern conflict. In the air domain, drones provide Ukraine with persistent awareness. This constancy disrupts Russian movement patterns and complicates planning. The ability to track units, identify weak points, and guide artillery gives Ukraine a decision-making advantage. Even hidden or camouflaged positions become vulnerable when drones can loiter for hours and observe subtle movements. In a conflict where information shapes every engagement, drones provide the clarity that Ukraine needs to operate with precision. On the ground, FPV drones have become one of the most defining tools of the war. Their precision allows small units to perform missions that once required extensive support. They can strike the vulnerable points of armored vehicles, target equipment with pinpoint accuracy, and disable fortifications. They transform infantry squads into precision strike teams. This not only improves tactical outcomes, but equalizes disparities in armored strength. Maritime drones represent another breakthrough. Ukraine's unmanned surface vessels combine speed, range, and stealth in ways that challenge traditional naval doctrine. Russia's Black Sea Fleet, long considered secure in its coastal positions, suddenly faced a threat it was not designed to counter. These drones forced Russia to disperse resources, relocate ships, and invest heavily in defensive measures. They shifted the balance in the maritime domain and demonstrated how low-cost systems can challenge powerful fleets. Ukraine's long-range drones add yet another layer. These platforms extend Ukraine's reach deep into Russian-held territory, striking infrastructure, supply hubs, and air bases. Russia, accustomed to operating at depth with a sense of strategic security, now faces constant pressure. These long-range systems cannot deliver the destructive power of large missiles, but they deliver persistent disruption. They force Russia to relocate key assets, expand air defenses, and expend costly interceptors on inexpensive drones. The doctrinal shift accompanying these technologies is perhaps the most significant development. Ukraine's military integrates drones into planning at every level. Commanders rely on drone feeds for real-time decision-making. Units synchronize movements with aerial observation. Artillery becomes dramatically more efficient when paired with drones capable of immediate correction. Even small engagements are shaped by drone-enabled awareness. This doctrinal integration creates a military uniquely adapted to drone-age warfare. Russia's slower doctrinal evolution has compounded its challenges. Traditional Russian strengths, artillery mass, armored assaults, centralized control, are increasingly vulnerable in a battlefield where drones expose movement, track units continuously, and direct precision strikes. Russia has adapted to some extent, developing its own FPV units and drone production lines, but the speed of iteration remains slower. The Russian military structure, built on hierarchical control and centralized planning, struggles to match Ukraine's distributed innovation. This gap between adaptation speeds is one of the war's defining asymmetries. Ukraine's advantage lies not just in drone numbers, but in the agility at which it evolves systems and tactics. The resulting dynamic is a continuous cycle where Russia attempts to solve yesterday's challenges while Ukraine presents new ones today. The ripple effects of Ukraine's drone evolution extend beyond the battlefield. Militaries worldwide are studying Ukraine's approach, its decentralized innovation model, rapid feedback loops, and integration of drones into every operational layer. The conflict has shown that a smaller nation, when equipped with creativity and flexibility, can disrupt a larger adversary through distributed technologies. Defense industries are reconsidering their production models. Commanders are rethinking doctrine. Planners are recognizing that agility may prove more decisive than scale. Yet for Ukraine, innovation is not optional. It is a necessity. Facing an adversary with greater traditional resources, Ukraine has used drones as a strategic equalizer, and the innovation continues. New drones are in development, faster, more autonomous, more resistant to jamming, and more capable across multiple domains. New software tools enable coordinated swarm operations, faster data sharing, and improved navigation in GPS-denied environments. New maritime systems push deeper into the Black Sea. Ukraine's drone ecosystem grows stronger with each iteration. This national commitment to rapid innovation ensures that Ukraine's drone evolution will not plateau. It will accelerate. Each battlefield lesson becomes a design feature. Each missed opportunity becomes a modification. Each Russian adaptation becomes a prompt for the next advancement. This feedback loop defines the strength of Ukraine's approach. Russia entered the war expecting traditional advantages to shape the conflict. What it encountered instead was a nation that redefined the battlefield through innovation. Ukraine did not simply adopt drones, it reinvented them. It made them central to strategy rather than supplementary tools. It used them to offset disadvantages and expose vulnerabilities, and it forced Russia into a reactive posture that continues to influence every layer of the war. As the world watches, one lesson stands out. The future of warfare belongs not just to the largest militaries, but to the fastest innovators. Ukraine's drone evolution demonstrates how agility, decentralization, and creativity can transform an entire conflict. It reveals how distributed technologies can challenge traditional power, and it shows that in the wars of tomorrow, those who adapt the fastest will shape the outcome. Ukraine did not just build drones, it built an ecosystem of national innovation, It leveraged the ingenuity of its people to create a new form of warfare, one that Russia was not prepared for, and one that will influence military thinking around the world for decades to come.